JSPL continues to be in focus. It's lost close to about 7% from the high point of the day. What we are picking up from sources is that the company has not qualified for Gare Palma 4x1. Nigel is here with all these exclusive details. Nigel, walk us through with what you're picking up.
Oh, Rima, things seem to be just changing very, very fast for JSPL. Just yesterday we saw that they secured 2 coal blocks. Remember, that was for the regulated sector. Now one of their coal blocks, which they were using otherwise, and they were extracting close around 6 million tons from this particular block, is the Gare Palma 4x1. JSPL was the original owner. It would be deallocated by March 2014. Now, this particular block, 2015 that is, this block comes up for auction tomorrow. But what we learned from sources is that JSPL hasn't qualified to even bid for these blocks. That's on the basis of financial bidding. So remember, the total number of bidders for this block and who had qualified technically were 10 to 11. JSPL doesn't feature in the top 50, and the ones that are featured up for you on the screen, the likes of Balco, Hindalco, SEML, as well as Sesa Sterlite, they have qualified for this particular bidding process, and the floor price we understand is roughly around 1,560 rupees per ton. What this block used to do for JSPL is to supply the coal for their Gare plant. That's around a 3 million ton plant, and various other plants in that particular region. Why is it so important for them? Because the plant is only, their end-use plant is only around 50 to around 55 kilometers away from this particular block. So if they don't get this block, then they'll have to resort to e-auction, they'll have to resort to importing, which isn't going to be great news. It'll be squeeze their margins as well. So the bottom line being that tomorrow is the bidding for this particular coal block, and JSPL hasn't qualified for the bidding of this. So a short point being, they have lost this coal block, where for the last few years they have been sourcing nearly around 6 million tons of coal from this particular block. So all in all, a bit of a negative surprise coming in after yesterday's super positive surprise.
Yeah, but Nigel, given that they won those 2 coal blocks yesterday, how big of a negative impact would it be? I mean, enough to take away the boost from yesterday?
So Sumana, I'll just explain this again. That yesterday's 2 coal blocks that they won were for the regulated sector. Okay. So they cannot use that coal for their own private consumption. That coal, they have to generate power, and then they have to sell 85% via the PPA route, and 15% they can sell in the merchant sales. But this block, why is it important? Because they have to use it for their end-use plant. They have to use it for their own captive consumption. So that's why it is extremely important. It was reserved for the non-power segment. That's the non-regulated segment. So that's why it is very, very important. Remember, they can go ahead and they'll try to bid for other blocks as well going ahead. But as things stand, extremely negative for them. At least them not qualifying for it, that's a big negative in itself.
I know we're throwing this at you, but is there any other coal mine which is close to the Gare plant which they can use to offset? So Rima, see, yesterday we were talking about the Gare Palma 4 2x3. Then now today what we are telling you is that tomorrow the Gare Palma 4x1, that's going to be up for auction. So they have not qualified for that. Then there is Gare Palma 4x7 as well, which was previously held by another company, if I'm not mistaken. It was, I think, it was Sarda. And today there's another Gare Palma 4 block that is for auction, which in fact JSPL again has not qualified. So maybe the other block, maybe that 4x7 that I'm talking about, maybe they can go ahead and they can bid for that for that particular block. And if they get it, then maybe in fact it won't be such a negative. But the point being that the block that they've already been using, there are various costs that are involved in grooming the coal, etc. That goes out of the window. So in that sense, in fact, it is a negative. Though they can go ahead and they can secure themselves going ahead if they can bid, and if in fact they can get coal from another mine. But I think they've submitted nearly around 3 bids in this particular auction itself, and all those 3 bids they haven't qualified, and the other ones that have qualified up for you on the screen. So it's going to be quite interesting whether the likes of Balco, Hindalco, Sesa Sterlite or SEML qualify. Remember, this is on the basis of the financial bidding.
Okay. And the stock is, losing ground, so it's almost erased half of yesterday's losses. From the top, that stock has lost about 11% now. So maybe you'd like to pull up the intraday chart. The stock is down about 4.5%, but off 11% from its lows. Yesterday, Rima, this is a stock that rallied about 21% in trade, and this morning it's just on the losing end.
Okay, joining us to talk about this particular development, we've got Ravi Uppal, the MD and CEO of JSPL. He joins us on the phone line. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks so much for joining in. First, can you just clarify whether the company has not qualified for Gare Palma 4x1?
Yeah, we did quote for the IPO of Gare Palma 4x1. We quoted a price level which we thought is the right price level for us to procure coal. and but in that round we did not qualify, and therefore we are not in the subsequent round of bidding.
So what will this mean for your steel business? Are there any other blocks that you could still bid for?
As you heard from the coal secretary yesterday, that there are a lot of mines which are there in Schedule 2 and 3, and we have our plans drawn up. You know which mines we will be targeting, and given the way Gare Palma 4/1 was, we know it very well what kind of mine it was, and we therefore had put a value which we think was the right amount, and anything in excess of that we were not willing to bid for it.
All right, Mr. Uppal, let me get into this conversation. Firstly, what was the bid price that you all had bid? Could you give us a rough idea, and could you tell us what is the minimum floor price that we're starting off with?
Well, I'm afraid I can't sort of give you the numbers.
Okay.
It's a information which is very privy to us.
Okay.
And you know from the public domain what is the reserve price that they have quoted.
Right. Okay.
And to us that did not make any sense.
Okay, Mr. Uppal, then tell us, till now, how much of coal were you all extracting from this particular mine, and what was it?
We were extracting 6 million tons of coal out of this one.
Okay.
So far, annually, we have been worked on this mine for the last 12 to 14 years.
Right.
And we know this mine very intimately.
Right. So the coal that you were sourcing from this mine, now you'll have to source it either from another mine. Could you tell us what was the cost that you all were incurring till date? What is the landed cost of this coal that you all have been doing for the last 12 to 14 years that you were telling us?
I'm afraid I can't give you that information. It is not for public domain.
Okay. So
it's very private for the company.
Okay, Mr. Uppal, then this mine goes out of the window, but also you said you'll be bidding for other mines. Do you all have your sights set on various other mines? And also, have you all bid a price that's better than this particular price? Because if that is the case, if there is competition, then maybe there could be another case when in fact you all don't qualify. So how many more mines have you all bid for besides this one?
Listen, I want to remind you what the coal secretary said yesterday.
Sure.
He actually cautioned all the bidders,
right,
to not to go overboard and quote something which they will not be able to afford.
Right.
We must remember, all the mines which are being sourced, they will be supplying coal for a length of period ranging anywhere between, shall we say, 20 to 30 years if these mines are big.
Right.
So therefore, it's not a question of just celebrating your success getting the mine for one day. You have to live with that price for the rest of the life.
Right.
Therefore, we have to follow a very realistic and very pragmatic approach. And JSPL, we have requirement of coal. We have identified the mines which are of a potential interest to us. We will make for them realistic bids, and I'm sure that we will succeed with some of them. We are not prepared to go and quote the kind of prices which are being quoted, which we think are unrealistic and not sustainable.
All right, Mr. Uppal, thanks so much for joining in. All the best for your future bids. As well as you stated, there are a lot of mines out there, so maybe in fact you can go and back one of them. So bottom line being, Rima, Sumera, that yesterday both those two coal blocks, they were secured for the regulated sector. In fact, it's a bit of a dent that they haven't been able to bid for a mine that they were previously holding. So on the back of that, in fact, it's somewhat of a negative. Maybe if they can go and bid for another one of these Gare Palma mines, then it could be an absolute fit to scene, if you like to call it. Back to you.